All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about real music and doing it in real time for a few real people out here just like you and just like me. First of all, Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a good day, or if you're seeing this video later, I hope you had a good Christmas with family, friends, or just chilling without too many people around. I know at this time of year, there are a lot of lonely people out there. And my prayers go out to you because it's rough doing Christmas all by yourself, especially if you've lost loved ones recently. That's just a big bummer. Um, so, anyway, Merry Christmas to you all, and hope you find the connections that will sustain you throughout this holiday season. Um, the best connection that you can make is a connection with God. Just putting it out there. So, you know who made a really interesting connection this year was Ross Valory from Journey. And not the best segue I've ever had here, but my old boss said, "How much does a Segway?" And I'm like, I don't know, a couple of pounds? Depends on how big the Segway is. Um, it's a bad radio joke. I'm sorry. So Ross Valory here, thanking Steve Perry. Yeah. So I've noticed that Ross has been just this real happy-go-lucky, grateful character during this entire year. He put out this solo album. It's called All of the Above. I'll try to link to it. See, I'm trying to do Ross Valory a public service. He says, "I want to thank you, Steve, for your kindness and the attention you've given my project over the last couple of years. And I have to say how impressed I am with your ever-growing collection of Christmas music. From a broad selection of fine musicians, you've chosen the right players for the right songs. Well done. The arrangements are superb and original, and it should not go without saying that your voice is beautiful. If there were a Hall of Fame for Christmas albums, I'm sure that Nat King Cole would be honored to have you in the fold. Keep going, Steve, and God bless you. Ross." That's really nice. I mean, what else? What can you say? You can't like throw any shade on that. That's just really nice. But I will say this. It is very interesting that since that supposed coup attempt, and this is really taking a hard right turn here, where allegedly it was Ross and Steve Smith and Steve Perry, and for a little while, even Jonathan Cain were opposing basically just Neil Sean as to who would get the rights to Journey or who would be in the band. And there was all this speculation. And eventually this got settled. And I think Ross did pretty well financially from that, as did Steve Smith. I think it was a one-time payout. I don't think it's in perpetuity. Whereas Steve Perry, he made the best deal in the world, right? He's still getting paid from stuff that Journey does. Not as much as he used to get paid, but he's still getting paid. But Ross Valory put out this very eclectic solo album, which you can go listen to, All of the Above, and I'll link to it just to be nice to Ross. But what's interesting to me is back in the 80s, I'm thinking that Steve didn't really like Ross Valory all that much. Ross Valory was a bit of a class clown, and he had a very strong and funny personality. He was comic relief. He was kind of like the court jester. If you go back to the 70s, and you're going to see Ross doing really goofy things, but you're also going to see Steve Perry doing goofy things. And the front man in those days probably didn't want a lot of competition from the bassist in that role. Whereas, Neil was just more or less not that kind of person, although every so often Neil would say something kind of funny. But, as far as promoting the band, it was really Perry who was, the main marketing guy and later on kind of the genius in the band. And as we all know, the Raised on Radio album comes out, and there is no Ross Valory. Instead, there is Randy Jackson instead of Ross Valory. And I'm sure people have strong opinions on who is a better bass player. Is it Ross Valory or is it Randy Jackson? I would say it depends on the style of music that you're making. If you're making the kind of music that Steve wanted to make, it's probably Randy Jackson. If you're making a more compromised version of Journey, you're probably going to go with Ross Valory, who is a very good bass player if you go back through his career. Ross Valory was also in The Storm, which came later, which if the 90s didn't go the way the 90s went, The Storm could have been that Journey replacement band. Yeah, I mean, they were that good. Greg Raleigh was in it. Kevin Chalfant was the singer. Kevin was also rumored around 93, 94. I think after The Storm kind of broke up because, again, the industry went south. They did come out with another album, which was very good, but it got ignored. At that point, nobody really cared, which is sad because they had a ton of talent. Josh Ramos was the guitarist. Ross Valory was playing bass, and Greg Raleigh was there. And Raleigh and Chalfant did that thing that Raleigh and Perry did when Greg was still with Journey, which is trade vocals, and it worked. It really worked. It was a great combination. But again, the music industry kind of sucks for the most part, even 30 years ago. And I always cite that era as, okay, all these great bands in the early 90s that got started, you could be Firehouse and sell a couple of million albums, and then 2 years later, Firehouse, that's cheesy. Nobody wants to hear Firehouse. So Ross Valory certainly made a smart move by joining The Storm because obviously Journey wasn't coming back. And then when Journey did come back, I'm pretty sure Neil Schon insisted that the Escape lineup be the band that comes back in 96. I think that was all his doing. He didn't want this Raised on Radio lineup coming back. And so that's always interesting. But what's most interesting to me is the fact that Perry and Valory have a strong relationship these days. And kudos to Steve Perry for promoting Ross Valory. It's interesting that Perry has never really promoted a new Journey album. And he's had, plenty of time to listen to, and he basically says, I haven't been really paying attention. I mean, Freedom came out. You didn't hear anything from Steve Perry like, wow, these guys have really, that would be interesting if Perry stepped forward and said, this is pretty good stuff, but maybe he doesn't like it. Maybe he doesn't think it's all that great. What's the best album that Journey made without Steve Perry? That would be an interesting conversation starter. What's the best album? I'm going to say Revelation. I think it's a really strong album. I think the material on that album is top notch. Some people will say Arrival, the first one they made without Perry with Steve Augeri, is a great album. And probably the most derivative of an album that Journey would have made in the past. Some people like Freedom, but Freedom has some production flaws and some content flaws where they just went too long. They did too many songs, and they could have pared it down. And I don't know what went wrong in the production end of things, but there's just something very tinny and very flat about it. Just doesn't sound as, I've heard guys with their own equipment at home putting together stuff that just sounds like $1 million. This guy, Craig Higgins, who has this great band called Causeway Stars, and his production is like Alan Parsons. It's just like, how do you do that? And the songs are great. The material is great. May not be your cup of tea, but if you have a chance, check out Causeway Stars. I wasn't planning on talking about them, but they're just a really cool band. And Craig has been supporting me and this channel for years. So I figured I would just give him a plug. But Ross Valory and Steve Perry, seems like they're buddies these days. Who knows? Who knows? Imagine if Ross did another album and said, "Hey, Steve, would you mind singing on a track?" I bet you Steve Perry would do it. I bet you Steve Perry would sing on a Ross Valory song. So we can look forward to that. Maybe Steve will ask him to play bass on his next studio album. I'd like to hear some non-Christmas music from Steve Perry, although Journey never recorded a Christmas album, and that's a huge mistake. They could still do it. Everybody did it. Chicago was doing them like every few years because they know this music every year is going to come out. It's going to be put away for most of the year, but every year, probably for another 1,000 years, if not longer, people are going to hear Christmas music by all of these different bands that have put out Christmas albums. So I said this years ago, Journey, why didn't you guys put out a Christmas album? Especially Jonathan Cain, who's very faithful and religious these days. He's put out his own Christmas album, and he's put out several Christian albums. And his last one, by the way, is really good. His last Christian album is excellent. People should go check that out. So there you go. Lots of recommendations. You've got Ross Valory's album, All of the Above. I'll try to link to that. The Jonathan Cain album, you can only stream. I don't think there are physical copies of it. I snooped around trying to find one, and I couldn't get one. And then Journey really should have a Christmas album, and they don't. Steve and Ross, they're buddies. It's cool. It's interesting. Maybe there'll be there could be a collaboration. You heard it here first. It's just speculation, but maybe a Perry Valory collaboration is in the works. And I think that would be cool. Journey fans would really like that. And I think it would probably be a little more jazz oriented, if I were guessing, because I think Ross likes that style too, and Perry likes it. So we shall see. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke here, but I would love to see that. I think music fans would be totally down with that. All right, people, before I go, share this album since it is Christmas. This is not a Christmas album, but most Christian albums that are hardcore like this, they contain music that's very appropriate for Christmas and year-round. And that's the point. Celebrating Jesus shouldn't just be one day a year or 2 days a year. It should be all the time. So I saw these guys, I don't know how many weeks ago now, back I think in early November, and they're just phenomenal. Selah, they are just a great vocal group. And, you know, in the new year, I'm probably going to be promoting more music like this. So be warned. I know if you're looking for me to just keep plugging the great country of Sweden and all the music that they put out, I'm not sure where I'm going to go with that. Not sure. My heart is saying, you know, you probably should try to promote the gospel more because it's eternity. You know what I mean? Your life is short here on earth, and then you've got all eternity. And where are you going to spend eternity? And if you don't believe in any of this stuff, what else is there? Where is your hope? Your hope is only in Jesus Christ. That's it. Who out there gives you more hope than Christ? So that's my point of view on that. You may disagree with it. I'm okay if you disagree with it, but in the end, especially when you start to get a few years older, you realize, you know, what's truly important. You'll say family. Yes, family is really important. Your job, maybe, but in the grand scheme of things, your eternity is the most important thing. So there you have it. Giving you a Christmas sermon along with the video. But Ross and Steve, let's hope that they actually get together and collaborate on something. I think that would be very interesting.